Okay, so hi all. This is a follow-up to the DEB seminar on pre-decisional information search adaptively reduces 3 types of uncertainty talk, which I highly recommend you to watch if you have not done so yet. And it is my privilege to be here with Mikhail Spector, who was our speaker. And he generously agreed to participate in our follow-up discussion. And I will just jump into the first question. So, Mikhail, again, thank you for coming. And can you please explain your finding to an undergrad student from an unrelated field?
Yes, of course. Thanks, Yefim, for having me here and for offering this platform also to have a discussion after the research talk. So I'll try to explain the findings to an undergrad student from an unrelated area. So I would start with basically like the research area and the motivation behind this research. And here it's really about information search, looking for information. I think all of us can relate to information search in general. It might be something where we look for information to make a decision, for example, looking at reviews of restaurants, of products before we make a decision what to buy or where to go. It could be also just information search for the sake of information search. For example, if we go down the rabbit hole of looking up new things on Wikipedia. And here we ask ourselves in this research is, how do people do this on a very fundamental level, right? So how do they approach these kinds of information search decisions in general? And what we did is we operate under probably one of the most popular frameworks to think about information search, which is uncertainty reduction. So people search for information to reduce uncertainty, and they do so that they choose the kind of pieces of information that will reduce the uncertainty the most. So that's the kind of like very general idea. And then we applied this to a very common paradigm, decision-making paradigm that we use a lot in laboratory research, where people have 2 options that are just like represented by unlabeled boxes, and these options give monetary rewards. So they essentially, you can imagine it's kind of like a lottery ticket, and these 2 boxes are different kinds of lotteries. And then people can observe as many lottery tickets as they want from each of those 2 boxes, and then when they have the feeling that they have observed enough, they can stop this information search and make a decision. And we really looked at this process of information search before making a decision. And for this, we used over a million of information search decisions that have been accumulated over the last probably 20 years of research using this kind of decision-making paradigm. And we entered the research project with just an open mind to find out, how do people do this? And that's where we identified 3 main components of uncertainty reduction that we call estimation uncertainty reduction, structural uncertainty reduction, and computational uncertainty reduction. And this sounds very, very sophisticated, but I hope it can be, it's intuitively plausible what these uncertainties mean. So estimation uncertainty reduction means basically people know what they are looking for, and they just want to make sure that whatever they're looking for is the right thing. So for example, if we're looking at restaurants, all we care about is, for example, the price. And so we're looking for the restaurant with the cheapest price that we can find. So that would be one example of estimation uncertainty reduction. Structural uncertainty reduction is a little bit more complex. Here it's really about the question, we don't know what we're looking for, so we first have to understand how the structure of the decision is. So for example, if we think back a couple of years when ChatGPT was released, we didn't know what it could be used for. It was a new tool, and everyone started exploring, trying out new things, and then we slowly but steadily understood what it can be used for, and we developed an understanding of the structure, basically, of this tool, and this is similar to the paradigm that we used. And then finally, computational uncertainty, that's basically making it easy for us to make sense of it, right? So, and here you can think of, if you look at online reviews, you could look at 5 million online reviews and then have a sophisticated rule how you integrate all this information, but that's quite complicated. So what you want to do is probably simplify this information integration process by looking only at a handful of reviews that you can process. And that's the main 3 findings that we have in our research, and I hope it's somewhat understandable for non-behavioral science students.
I also hope so. It's difficult for me to say whatever it's understandable for someone not from the field, but it's definitely a very good explanation for someone who knows something about the sampling paradigm. And tell me, please, a related or perhaps not that related question. Do I understood correctly from your talks that this data is publicly available on your website or no?
The data have been already publicly available before. So this is a joint research project with Dick Wolf, who's currently at the Max Planck Institute in Berlin. And they have analyzed the choice part of this data set in a meta-analysis that they published in 2018. So they looked at the choices that people make, and here we look at the information search that people make. And the data set is available entirely on the Open Science Framework.
Cool. Good opportunity for different researchers to exploit it. And do you think, relatedly to what you spoke about, do you think that people are looking for, in a sense, for surprising events when they are searching, like what, as you mentioned, the rare events, or do they think that it's too good to be true if we speak about the real search problems, like if you learn that one hotel is superbly good, for example, or reviews are too good, so you say, oh no, should be something bad about this place. It can't be that cheap and also provides that a good value. So do you think it is related in this sense?
It's a very good point. So actually, I mean, trying to make it like approachable to non-behavioral science people, right? So it's people bring a lot of background assumptions when they solve such a task, right? So when we do research, they come to the behavioral lab, they sit in front of a computer, they press some buttons, which is very abstract. It's not really like how reality works in many ways, right? But in reality, we have an understanding that there's some things that are too good to be true, right? So we call it often like risk reward heuristic, that like if you want to get higher rewards, we have to take higher risks. There's no free lunch, as economists often say. And we were able to identify in this data set that we have, we were able to identify these kinds of background assumptions that people bring in. So if the decision is too easy, if it looks too easy, that one option looks extremely good and the other option looks not so good, people are suspicious and they do try to find some confirmation because it is too easy to be true, too good to be true. So we did find such a signal. And we did find some additional evidence that people also have other background assumptions that they bring into it, and structure the information search accordingly. So if you have, like, in reality, we often have some background information about what we can expect, right? So if for example, if we're thinking about restaurants, we kind of know where in the world we are located, what kind of cuisines might be generally good or generally bad. And so we use this background information also to structure our search, right? So if for example, I'm in Vietnam right now, so international Western cuisine is not so prevalent here. So that's why it's a different process searching for, let's say, I don't know, a taco restaurant here compared to somewhere in Texas in the United States.
I completely agree with you, and thank you for this elaboration. So basically what you are saying is that even in our very simplified task in which we say that it's we rule everything out, we should not forget about that different people come to the lab with very different assumptions about the world and with very different experiences of the world before coming to the lab. So we have to take this experience into account. Do I summarize it correctly what you say?
Absolutely. Another way to put it is humans are complex creatures, so it's very difficult to understand humans, and I think that's part of the excitement why we do research on humans' decision making, right?
And in your presentation, you mentioned that you find interesting individual differences, but you have not gone into it in your talk. Can you mention briefly the nutshell of your finding about the individual differences?
So yes, so what we do in this individual difference analysis, so we have formalized these three information search processes, and then in the research talk, I presented the kind of like general overview across all individuals. But then what we can also do is we can use the very same signal at each information search step, at each decision that people make, and we can then use the sequence of information search decisions that people made to classify them according to which process are they following. And are they following any of these three processes at all? And that's where the interesting result comes about, that we do find that there's quite a substantial proportion of people who follow the discovery-driven search this mechanism of discovery-driven search that I introduced in the research presentation. But we also find quite a lot of people that cannot be explained by any of these three information search principles. And we find people who rely mostly on value-driven search, and we find people who rely mostly on estimation-driven search, right? So it's really when we do analyses at the aggregate level, we forget that people are very diverse and they rely on different strategies in different situations. So that's what we found in our individual difference analysis.
That might be an interesting avenue to proceed, which leads me to the next question. How do you plan to proceed with your findings, or how you plan to elaborate this research, move forward with it, if at all?
So, I mean, I would say my main method of research is that of an experimental psychologist. So if I find something interesting, then I try to use the experimental method to really narrow it down to understand this phenomenon. And so here it's really important that I stress that the project I presented, it's based on observational data. So we did our best to establish a mechanistic explanation, and we try to make within the data set predictions about how people will behave in different situations depending on which mechanism they might be relying on. But at the end of the day, it's like a data set that exists, and we analyze it after the fact. And so that's why I think the next step that I'm pursuing with a few colleagues is to try and basically create different experiences for people experimentally, and then see how these different experiences of like structural nature, right? So different experiences in terms of how many unique outcomes they have observed in this sampling paradigm task, how this affects their information search afterwards. So we have developed a design where we hope we'll be able to do this, but we haven't been able to really collect some good data and analyze it yet.
Good luck. That sounds very exciting project. So good luck with it. I know that you publish in the journals when you do a project. So I'm looking forward to see where it will go eventually. So going from your research to general questions, what is in your opinion the most pressing issue in social science nowadays?
I think that's what we all of us who are interested in doing social science research, that's basically what we're asking ourselves, right? So I think all of us want to contribute to society with our research, and we all have to ask ourselves, so what's the most pressing issue? And as a research community, I think basically we have decided AI is now the big thing. It's here to stay, and it's here to be understood, not only from the computer science perspective, but also from the sociological, psychological, behavioral science perspective, right? So I think that's definitely a very pressing issue, and I'm sure if you go anywhere, you present anything, one of the first questions will be, but how does it relate to AI, or how can you include AI, or what are the implications with regard to AI? So definitely yeah, like the role of AI and how we as humans interact with it. I think that's probably one of the most pressing social issues in social science.
I cannot agree more. In fact, even our next DEB seminar is on this topic. And another related question, what is your vision for our community, let's say for 10 years from now, or a certain time from now?
Actually, I would like to answer this question with a little anecdote about one of my first experiences with Ido Eref when I was a PhD student. So I'm sure I don't need to introduce Ido Eref in this context. I think everyone who would watch this video would know who Ido Eref is. And I think it was like a small workshop on memory, if I remember correctly, where Ido Eref gave a little presentation. It was a little bit of a high-level presentation about like what's the role of behavioral science in society. And one thing that Ido Eref mentioned that really stuck with me is, what are we good at as behavioral scientists? We're not good at computer science. That's what computer scientists are good at, right? So if we kind of as a community, if we compete with computer scientists in the area that they are good at, there's no way we will be able to survive as a community, right? So we can't do building machine learning models. We can't do building AI models. We can't do using them to predict like data. That's not something we are trained to do as behavioral scientists. That's not something we can compete on, right? But the thing we can do is we have good theories that we have developed over the relatively short history of psychology and behavioral economics. And we have a good way of thinking in higher order concepts about things that are happening. And I feel like for the last couple of years, we have been giving up these qualities of behavioral science in favor of trying to do like predictions a lot, using AI to predict things, using machine learning to outsource the kind of theory building that we are good at, where we are really like, that's our expertise. So I really hope that our community will maintain or maybe return to this kind of like strong making sense of things. And so that we would use and understand the pressing issues, right? I mean, AI is a pressing issue, but not that we try to do what other people are doing with AI, but where we really focus on the things we can do as social scientists.
So basically, using our competitive advantage rather than trying to do what others do, probably better than us.
Yeah, I mean that's like if you want to look at it as kind of like an economics, like attention economics framework, then we have to find our niche, and there's some things we can do better than economists, than computer scientists, than anthropologists, sociologists, and that's where we should, that's what we should do, and that's my vision. So that's what I hope we will be really also perceived as a community that is good at this competitive advantage that we do have.
I see. And tell me, please, as someone who appears to accomplish a lot, so I guess you work quite hard. So my question is, how do you manage to find a work-life balance, if at all? How many hours are you working?
I'm sure other people have answered some things similarly, right? So it's like
I don't know.
I feel like in academia we don't really have this strict separation between work and non-work, right? So like if we think about a like a classical clerical job or in manufacturing, it's like you work when you're at work and you don't work when you're not at work. And we have much blurrier lines between work and non-work, right? So that's why like, I don't know, even this kind of like thinking about a new research project or about how to solve a problem that you might have encountered on your walk back home from work. Is this work? Is this non-work? So I think it's really just difficult to separate those. So, and then also maybe like you probably can relate to it. There's some activities that we do as part of our profession that feel like work. Other things feel like you've accomplished something and you make progress, and other things where it's just feel very tedious. And so I just find it very difficult to really separate or to summarize everything as kind of like work. So that's why I can't really attach a number to my work hours. It's probably more than my work contract asks me to do, but at the same time, many of the activities, they don't feel like you're doing work. They feel rewarding in themselves and they're fun activities. So yeah.
So you're a lucky person, but it's interesting, surprising for me to learn that in your contract you have a specified number of hours that you are supposed to work.
Don't we all have these kinds of work contracts? I mean,
No, this is
oh,
actually,
really?
I've spoken with a lot of people. This is the first time that I hear about the specified number of hours to work. Maybe I'm completely, because I have to admit in my research, one of the things I personally research is that people do not read the contracts, and I follow my research, so I have definitely have not read my
Okay.
contract, I have to confess. But as far as I know, no. Like I have in my contract, for example, that I have to work during the semester. I have to teach the lectures. But other than that, other than lectures hours, there is no mention of how many hours I'm expected to work or not work. So
Oh,
this is very
wow.
surprising.
I mean, I have to say, culturally, I'm very like German, and so I read all the contracts I ever signed very carefully, at least the labor contracts. And everywhere there was a specified hour, like number of hours that I had to work, like 36 hours per week, 40 hours per week. I think in my PhD it was 42 hours per week, so it
Oh,
always had like a number of hours that's specified there.
And good luck measuring it, you know.
Well, I mean, I think um, it's a little bit tangential to the purpose of this conversation, but actually there are some attempts to measure it, and there's some, at least, for example, in Germany, there's actually a law that work time needs to be assessed by employers to make sure that workers are not working too much. So
I thought the other way around.
I mean, I think it's a very big challenging issue, and as you know, also like from a lot of economics research, if you start measuring these things, then people optimize on what you're measuring and not what they should be doing. So yeah, it's a difficult topic.
Definitely. And also, I think it's not exactly related, but creativity also goes down when you measure strictly the working hours, etc. I think.
Yeah.
Anyways,
I mean,
it's not a
we could all go to office and hang around there for a certain number of hours and then go home. That's not what our employers want us to do. So
for sure. Is there a mention also of how many days are you expected to be in the office?
no, I think that's not part of the labor contracts that I have signed so far.
By the way, I think it was, I'm not sure formally, but at least informally expected before the COVID in many places. But after the break of the COVID, it completely disappeared. Like working for home, for office became a complete norm from my
I think it depends a lot on the supervisor who's running the department. So some of them are more lenient, some of them are more strict. So I've heard from many colleagues where the guideline is at least 3 days a week in the office, for example. So it depends. And I think it's also like during semester time when there's teaching and meetings and committees, we usually probably spend more days in the office than outside of teaching times.
Yes, definitely, definitely. And there is advantage to that because otherwise we all prefer that other people come and we have the flexibility. But if then we come and there is no one, it's not that fun to be in empty faculty.
Yeah, I think that's like the community building aspect is maybe something that suffers the most from remote work. Where so when I did a PhD, it was like basically everyone was working in the office every day. And so you knew you go to the office and you have your peers who face the same challenges and struggles, who you can exchange with, exchange ideas, and so on. So I think this is something that got lost a little bit.
Definitely, this is my experience as well, unfortunately. I cannot agree more. If not academia, what would you do in life?
I don't know, to be honest. So that's one of those things um, I don't really ask myself. So it's when I started my PhD, and actually I decided to do a PhD relatively late. I think it was during my master's, like after I did my master's in Germany, so there are two years. And I think after like 1 year or maybe like half a year before completing my master's, like, oh, doing research is fun. I can imagine myself doing it for a couple years more as like a main activity. And so I just decided to apply for some PhD positions, and I was lucky enough to get one that sounded very exciting and turned out to be very exciting. And so um, as long as it's fun, as long as I enjoy doing what I do, I hope I can stay working in academia as long as possible. And if that's not possible, or if I stop having fun, then I'll see what's an alternative that could be an interesting, fulfilling experience. So, but I believe something along the lines of analyzing human behavior or making sense of humans, or educating other people about things that I have expertise in. I think these are areas that I would probably explore.
It seems that you're a lucky person. You're doing what you enjoy doing and even managed to get some money for doing that.
I
That's
think
nice.
we are very privileged in this respect. Yes.
That's definitely true. And you already touched on this question, but I will still go back for it for a second. How do you find your research questions to work on?
Um, so I think there's like different kind of types of researchers and the kind of research topics that they study, right? So I mean, there's some researchers that have like a research agenda and they have a topic and they really try to pursue this as much as possible. I do have like some areas of research where I think I'm probably like among a small community of experts in a specific topic. But I generally don't feel like the need to pursue this as deep as possible. And so I'm usually thinking what's something meaningful and where can I put my skills to use to make a contribution. And so that's often my main motivator when I pursue new research projects. And so that's why for example, a paper I have published together with a master's student back at Warwick, who's now doing a PhD at Washington University St. Louis, and Lukasz back at Warwick. We're looking at how people write reviews about like video game reviews. How do they decide what to write about? And that's not really decision making. That's like very far away from these things, but the skills that we have obtained as JDM researchers, as behavioral scientists, helped us being able to answer this question. And I very much enjoyed working on this project and many other projects. So it's really trying to do good science, trying to do something where my skills and knowledge matter. And then there's too many research questions to work on anyhow. So then you have to be selective.
I can definitely relate to the part of doing exciting research and also to the part that there are definitely too many questions. And a few questions, not few. What are your hobbies? What hobbies do you have outside of working on writing exciting papers?
Um, I like dancing a lot, social dancing.
Oh,
I feel
that's
there's
interesting.
I find there's a surprising amount of academics in these dance communities usually. I think it's definitely above average. I dance Argentine tango and also Lindy Hop, which is a swing dance.
Mm-hmm. Cool, very interesting. Not something that I would expect. And you manage to find in different countries these communities of dancers?
Uh, they, they there are surprisingly many communities in most countries. So what I like to do, especially as a PhD student, when I went to conferences, I always took my dance shoes with me to see if there's any kind of like dance event in whatever city that the conference took place in. And in almost every one of them, there was some event during the short period of time that the ha conference happened. So it's really a very global community.
Wow, that's interesting and surprising. How you came to start dancing?
Uh, I think at some point was really just why not, just trying
Mhm.
it out. And then actually, so I did my PhD in Basel in Switzerland. And at the time in the department, I believe we were like 6 PhD students. Out of the 6 PhD students, 3 were dancing. So it's, yeah, also a common hobby among my peers at the time.
Interesting, very interesting. I think an interesting way to meet new people also.
Actually, Haifa has a very nice community of dancers. When was the Spudum in Haifa? Was 2017, I believe.
Oh, wow. Now you asked me a tough question. I think, yes, one before, I don't remember. Before Vienna? No, before,
I think maybe Amsterdam, or no,
yeah,
Amsterdam was
Amsterdam,
recently.
right.
But I believe it
Well,
was in 2017, if I remember
yeah,
correctly.
probably.
And that's also, yeah, I took my dance shoes with me, and I went to some dancing events, and very nice community. So you should try.
Very
It's fun.
surprising to learn that in Haifa there is a dancing community. Interesting. Uh, you're a young scholar, if I may say, but already very accomplished. So, what is your advice for way younger scholars, those who are in the master studies or the PhD?
I mean, to be honest, I think I would give very cautious advice. So maybe two pieces of advice. One of them is survivorship bias is real. So we only ever hear about the people who were able to make it and stay in academia, and we hear very little about those people who struggled, who didn't enjoy it, or who did not manage to secure a long-term position in academia. So I think this is the most important advice to try to understand how much survivorship bias there is, and try to also gather perspectives from those people who might not be in academia, but also kind of like to search information in the cells of people who maybe tried to or wanted to and are not in academia anymore. So I think that's very important to make a balanced, good decision for themselves. And then a second piece of advice is, I think, like when people ask me, should they do a PhD? I think it's really depends. It should be more like, in general, I feel like a PhD in many disciplines does not necessarily improve general career perspectives. And I think behavioral science is probably one of those fields. So people who are in undecided if they should do it or not, maybe they should not. So I think maybe people should do a PhD only if they're really burning for like research, or burning to find out new things, trying to understand things. So I think it's really like I've seen too many people struggle because they were not enjoying the kind of like the research part of doing a PhD. And then for them, it was then circling back to one of the first questions, it was a lot of work actually that felt like work.
So basically, if I can summarize your advice, is one, to be cautious, and second one, to pursue a PhD only if you really feel that it's your passion. Otherwise, consider other careers.
Yes, and maybe related to the first point, maybe just don't listen to my advice.
That's interesting advice as well. And as Ido mentioned, you're a bold guy. You moved from through different universities. Now you're in Vietnam. I hope you enjoy your time there. It seems that you enjoy your time there. Are you looking for a master and PhD students? Is it difficult to get accepted into your university, into your program?
So this very closely relates to the question of how I find like my research topics, and here it's the same, right? So it's kind of like I feel like I made the move here to because I think I can have an impact. I can change things for the better. I can contribute with my skills. But at the same time, here we're talking about a university that's 5 years old, and the psychology group, if you want to call it like this, it's 2 years old. So basically, we don't have a graduate school yet, so there's no master's program, there's no PhD program yet, but hopefully I will be able to contribute to a development in these areas, and hopefully there will be a nice, good program in the foreseeable future.
Mikhail, it was very interesting to talk with you. Thank you very much for finding the time for this interview. Thank you again for the fascinating talk on the DEB seminar, and I hope to see you in our next seminars.
Thank you, Yefim. It was a pleasure being here, and of course, I'll attend as many DEB seminars as I can.
Thank you.